My mother said it at a family dinner, smiling like it was helpful. You know your brother needs it more. You've always been different. The check slid across the table toward him. $230,000. Everyone watched him laugh. No one looked at me. My father cleared his throat. No correction. No defense. I sat there, hands folded, while relatives discussed mortgage rates and neighborhoods. Someone asked what I was doing these days. I said, I'm fine. Later, in the parking lot, my brother hugged me and whispered, don't take it personally. That's when I understood. This wasn't about money. It was about who mattered. Looking back, the dinner wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time they said it out loud with witnesses. Growing up, my brother was always described as promising. Teachers used that word. Coaches did too. My parents repeated it like a diagnosis. Promising meant temporary mistakes were forgiven. Promising meant resources appeared. New cleats. Tutors. Second chances. I was described differently. Responsible. Independent. Low maintenance. Those words sound positive until you realize they mean no one is planning to show up for you. When I graduated college, my parents hosted a small party in the living room. Store-bought cake. Paper plates. My brother didn't come because he had plans with friends. My mother said he was busy building his future. When he dropped out of his second program a year later, my father helped him cover rent until he found his footing. I paid my own bills. I didn't complain. I learned quickly that need made people uncomfortable. The house money came from an inheritance. My grandmother had left it to my parents with a note about helping both children get settled. That part was never mentioned again. Instead, the narrative shifted to practicality. My brother had a family. My brother needed stability. My brother couldn't do it alone. I could. That's what my father said when I asked, quietly, if there was anything set aside for me. You've always managed, he said. That's your strength. At work, I was praised for the same thing. Reliable. Adaptable. I covered shifts. I trained new hires. When budgets tightened, my role was merged with another. The explanation was almost flattering. I could handle more. At home, my parents forwarded listings to my brother. They visited open houses. They discussed interest rates over speakerphone while I listened from the other room. When I left early, my mother followed me out and asked if I was upset. I said no. That answer made everything easier for them. After the dinner, I stopped calling. Not as a statement. As an experiment. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't maintain the thread. Weeks passed. No one noticed. When my birthday came, my mother texted a day late. A heart emoji. No call. When my brother closed on the house, they sent photos. Balloon arch. Big red sold sign. I replied with a thumbs up. I didn't feel angry. I felt exposed. Like something I'd been pretending not to see had finally stepped into the light. I started keeping things to myself. Promotions. Moves. Setbacks. I realized my life had been open to them mostly because I volunteered it. Once I stopped, there was nothing pulling us together. The silence was uncomfortable at first. Then it became familiar. I watched how quickly they filled the space with other concerns. Repairs. School events. Weekend plans. No one asked why I'd gone quiet. No one checked in. That was the clearest message of all. By the end of that year, I understood something that had taken me decades to learn. Being low maintenance didn't make me valued. It made me invisible. So I stepped back further. Not to punish them. To see myself without their version of me attached. The longer I stayed quiet, the clearer the pattern became. It wasn't that they suddenly stopped reaching out. It was that they only reached out when something needed smoothing. When a form needed signing. When my brother needed a favor. When my mother wanted advice but not discussion. Silence had never been absence. It had been convenience. I started noticing how often I had been used as a buffer. The calm one. The one who didn't react. The one you could disappoint without consequences. When my brother missed a payment on his new house, my father called me first. Not to ask for money. To ask how to talk to him. When my mother argued with her sister, she wanted me to listen. Not to fix it. Just to absorb it. They still didn't ask how I was doing. At work, something shifted too. Without family noise filling my evenings, I stayed late. Took on projects no one else wanted. Learned things quietly. Not because I was trying to prove anything. Because no one was interrupting me anymore. I didn't post updates. I didn't share milestones. When I moved to a different part of the city, my parents found out months later through someone else. My mother sounded surprised, then slightly hurt, like information had been withheld from her unfairly. "You could have told us," she said. I thought about how many things they hadn't told me. The calls became shorter. The pauses longer. I realized how much effort I had put into making conversations feel normal. Without that effort, there wasn't much left. Meanwhile, my brother struggled. Homeownership wasn't what he expected. Repairs cost more. Taxes surprised him. My parents stepped in where they could. Advice. Emotional support. Occasional checks. They spoke about it like teamwork. No one asked me to help. No one assumed I would. That should have felt like relief. Instead, it confirmed something heavy. I wasn't part of the problem because I wasn't part of the structure at all. One evening, my mother asked if I was upset about the money. Her voice was careful, like she was stepping around something fragile. I told her the truth. It's not about the money. She waited for more. I didn't give it. Because explaining would have meant teaching her how to see me. And I wasn't sure she wanted that. That night, I wrote down everything I had ever quietly accepted. Missed support. Uneven expectations. Praise that came with conditions. I didn't share the list. I didn't need to. Reading it back, one thing was obvious. This wasn't a single choice they made. It was a system they built. And systems don't change because someone finally speaks up. They change when the quiet support holding them together is removed. I stopped feeling guilty then. Not all at once. Slowly. Like someone realizing they've been carrying weight that was never theirs to begin with. The boundary was crossed without drama, which somehow made it clearer. 2 years after I stopped calling, my brother found my place by accident. That's what my father said later. He was driving through a newer development on the edge of town, lost after a meeting. He recognized my car in a driveway and slowed down. He didn't stop. He just stared long enough to notice the house. It wasn't large. Not flashy. But it was finished. Maintained. Quiet. The kind of place you only get after years of steady work and no one rescuing you. He called my father before he reached the end of the block. My dad told me this during a voicemail, his voice tight. He said my brother was upset. He said my brother felt blindsided. He said there were questions. The voicemail ended with, "We need to talk." I listened to it twice. Then I didn't call back. An hour later, my mother texted. Not to ask how I was. To ask why I hadn't told them I bought property. The word bought stood out, like it didn't quite fit the image they had of me. I didn't respond. That night, my brother left a message. Angry. Confused. Loud. He said it wasn't fair. He said he didn't know I was doing that well. He said our parents had helped him because they thought I didn't need it. There it was. Said plainly, without apology. Need had always been the currency. Silence had been read as surplus. I deleted the voicemail. The next day, my father emailed. He asked for details. Purchase price. Mortgage terms. How long I'd been planning it. His questions felt like an audit. Like my life had skipped a required approval step. I replied with one sentence. I didn't think it was necessary to update anyone. That was the last explanation I offered. After that, the tone changed. Invitations started coming again. Casual ones. Coffee. Dinner. Just to catch up. My brother suggested we reset. My mother said families go through phases. I declined politely. Every time. Not out of anger. Out of accuracy. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting something fragile and new. The version of my life that existed without being evaluated, compared, or managed. For the first time, I wasn't asking to be seen. I was choosing distance and letting it stand on its own. I didn't announce the distance. I just let it stay. I stopped correcting assumptions. When my mother told people I was private, I didn't clarify. When my father said I'd been busy lately, I let that be the explanation. Silence was easier for everyone than facts. Over time, the consequences arrived the way they usually do. Quietly. Through systems. My brother missed a tax payment. Then a repair piled onto another. The house they rushed into became heavier than expected. My parents helped where they could, but their retirement had limits. Advice didn't stretch far. Neither did savings. They asked me once, indirectly, if I had recommendations for a financial planner. I sent a name. No commentary. What surprised them most wasn't that I wouldn't help. It was that I didn't rush in the way I used to. No follow-ups. No reminders. No emotional labor layered on top. My brother called again months later. Softer this time. He said things were stressful. He said Dad was worried. He said families should stick together. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When he finished, I said I hoped things improved. Then I ended the call. Nothing dramatic followed. No blow-ups. No final conversations. Just a slow recalibration. Invitations became less frequent. Messages shorter. Expectations adjusted downward. I kept my life small and intact. Work. Home. Friends who didn't need explanations. I didn't hide. I just didn't volunteer. On my parents' anniversary, I sent a card. No gift. No call. My mother texted thank you. A few minutes later, she added, we miss you. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care. Because missing someone isn't the same as making space for them. Years ago, they decided who needed help and who could manage. They built their choices around that belief. All I did was stop propping it up. I didn't take anything from them. I didn't ask for recognition. I didn't demand fairness retroactively. I let the structure they built operate without me filling the gaps. And in that space, I found something steady. A life that didn't depend on being underestimated. A quiet proof that I hadn't failed. I'd simply succeeded where no one was watching. I kept going.